Welcome, Kya, to the YouTube channel. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So me and Kya just met on Zoom 3 minutes ago.
hmm
Kya, tell us where are you from? How'd you get started with the job? Give us like the 35-second Kya story about with CUTCO.
Okay, so I am from like Snohomish, Washington area. I started with Cutco because my cousin is Nyan Preeter. He started working with Cutco a couple years ago, 2 years. He's now 21, I believe. And I've seen how much Cutco has changed him, not just how much success he's had, but as a person. Like whenever we do our family gatherings, he's such a different person. And I know he's starting up a few businesses of his, which is kind of what I want to do as well. So I mostly got into Cutco for the skills, but in the meantime, I'm pretty successful in it already. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. What are you a student right now?
Yeah, I'm a student I'm taking a couple classes at Cascadia College, transferring into UW. I might be doing a little study abroad program here within the next year or two.
Cool. And what year are you in school?
Oh yeah. I graduated in 21 from Jackson High School, and I did running start full time. So technically I'm no, a senior. A senior, yeah.
Okay, got it. Um, and when did you start this job? Was it over winter
I
break? Can you tell us that?
started December 10th was my first day.
December 10th. How did it go? How'd your first weekend, how'd your fast start go?
Um, okay, my first weekend was terrible. I remember I hopped off, um, I think it was Chloe or Austin on the last day of training, or no, the first day of training. At the end of the day, it was like, okay, now start calling people. And I'm like, I like stalled. I called my mom who was downstairs. And so my first couple appointments were like my grandma. A lot of them Nyan already took and sold to. So I was doing people who I was most comfortable with rather than, oh, they don't have, or like, I was doing appointments with people who had Cutco, but rather than, oh, like I'm going to do an appointment with this person who I think will buy, I was like, you know what? I'm really not comfortable like right now. So my first weekend sucked. It was just with people who I knew wouldn't buy or anything. But in my fast start, I hit just over 10K.
Okay, pause right there. Hold up. So your cousin is 9.
Yeah.
You know how much she sold last year? I think it
Three
was like, oh, 300 something, right?
300 something. Yeah. He won the silver cup.
Right, right. Nyan's becoming a legend. He sold over $300,000 last year. He's 21.
Yeah, 21 or 22.
Is he your first cousin, second cousin, third cousin? Like
Cousin.
he's your
Yeah.
first cousin.
Yeah.
So in your like first weekend, everyone you were calling, they were very familiar. They're like, yes, we'll
Oh
watch you.
yeah, everyone. Even like I would say everyone in my fast start, almost everyone, three-fourths of the people were familiar. And they knew that I was doing or that Nyan did Cutco. A lot of them Nyan did demos with already. So
Okay, how like so that's awesome context to your story. So your first weekend, how many appointments did you do? How much did you sell?
I think I had my first weekend, so Saturday and Sunday, I had no sale. I did 3 appointments. But Monday was my first sale, and it was a 4-pack of table knives. And it was with my uncle's neighbor. So I don't think Nyan did a demo for her.
Got it. How did you, if he had already sold to the whole family, right?
Mhm.
How did you have people to call? Like, what did you do for leads to start?
Yeah, so I had to get creative. Some ways that I got my leads were going through my mom's Facebook and Instagram, and I would like go through, and a lot of people I'd still do a demo with. Um, but I tried to find those people who were like I knew about in the past, but I kind of forgot about. I also posted on the Nextdoor app, which I booked a couple demos from there. And then I also did some work for my uncle. In exchange, he gave me all of his contacts. So these were people who Nyan didn't do demos with. It was more, yeah. How else did I get leads? I had people post me as well. And I really tried to focus on recs, even though I was not good at them in the beginning instead of sales, because I tried to get past that first layer that Nyan hit.
How did you know that that was going to be like, how did you know you would have to get past that first layer?
What do you mean?
Like, did you ever lose, I guess said differently, a different question. Did you ever lose belief that you'd be able to get past that first layer?
No.
You
No.
knew you'd be able to.
Oh yeah,
How'd you
definitely.
know?
How would I know? Because I've seen Nyan's success, and it's kind of like the snowball effect. So the more demos that I do with people, even the people who he already hit, they're still gonna think of like one or two people who he didn't do a demo with, and then they're gonna give me more, and then they're gonna give me more. And I just knew it. I knew that if I kept putting in the work and did more demos, that I'd get more recs, and then I could do more demos.
So for you, it's been about Rex from the start. Like, hey, I'm gonna get Rex and I'm gonna get this thing rolling.
Pretty much, that was my big goal. I mean, yeah, Nyan hit all my family members, sold to everyone. So I had to really think of people who weren't my immediate family or friends.
Yeah. Did you ever lose belief in your fast start?
Um, so Austin got me really riled up with all like the contests and everything. And in the beginning, I think so one thing in the beginning, one tip is to not fear rejection or not lose momentum after like no sale days. Because within like new reps, it's really easy to lose momentum and lose hope in the beginning. So I tried to focus on like the numbers will always even out. I did lose hope a little bit. I mean, I no, not in like working with CUTCO, but in my fast start. Like there was a couple times where I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna hit 10K, but I'm like, no, I can't think like that. Like I'm gonna hit 10K. But I ended up doing it, and that was only just for like 1 or 2 days after like 1 or 2 really bad days. That's why it's really important to not like lose momentum or like get down on yourself. Because then the next day I sold 5K. Like,
What was your first big breakthrough? Like, what was your big, big sale or like a lot of recommendations? You said your uncle, you did some work for him and he gave you the whole contact book. Like, when was your first big breakthrough? Like, how far into the job? How long after training until you had your first big sale or like first big break?
let's see. So I had my first really big sale in the middle of my fast start. It was a 5K order. She got
Who was it? What'd they buy?
It was one of my mom's esthetician friends. And I just asked for her number. This is one of the people that I kind of forgot about, but I was like, oh, I need her number. She loves cooking. She got an ultimate set with steak knives, and she also got a flatware set. And yeah, she was kind of really easy to close, to be honest. She's one of those people who will buy anything.
Yeah, there's people like that all over. So, okay, so you hit 10K in your fast start. Tell me about, there are a lot of people who hit 10K in their fast start. Well, I should also say there's a lot of people who struggle that first weekend, kind of like you did a little bit,
Yeah.
and just give up. You didn't. You saw the silver lining, thanks to Nyan a little bit. Like you knew that.
Yeah.
So you powered through, had a great fast start. There's a lot of people who hit 10K and then that's kind of it. So how did you get from even 10 to 20? As soon as someone hits 20, that's when it's like, okay, now I really see this, because you're pretty much only showing strangers and adding layers at that point, right? So how did you tell me about your road from 10K to 20K?
Okay, so you were talking about breakthroughs. I want to mention this. So I mentioned how I was really bad at recs. So after my fast start, I transferred strictly to referrals, and I kind of slowly like ran out of referrals, but I was really, really consistent from 10 to 20. I was also competing for the Mexico trip, which I qualified for. So I'd say my breakthrough in Rex was when I started coaching with Rob, and now I average 10 Rex, which was, I think when I started coaching with Rob, it was maybe 15K in sales. But I think honestly my road from 10 to 20 was strictly just consistency, because I wasn't getting that many recs. It's not like my sales were over the top. It was just consistent phone time, honestly. So I think my success between 10 and 20 was my consistent phone time. I think that was the breakthrough right there, because it's really easy to lose momentum after a big sale day or a big win. Like, oh, I just hit 10K in my fast start. So I was like a little bit sluggish a week after, but I got the ball rolling again. And I was like, I got into a habit. Whereas in my fast start, I was like, oh, I'm just working with my family and friends and blah, blah, blah. And it came more of like a job and a habit of like, I have to do this. And yeah, it was just really consistent.
So little context, coaching with Rob Brandt, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So you got yourself 10K fast start, and then there was a Mexico contest. You got to like 15, and then you started working with Rob at like 15K.
Something around there, yeah. So I would say like 10 in between 15, I was just really consistent, and that's why I was successful. And then I started coaching with Rob, and I started learning new ways how to get more recs and sell more. And then from there, it's just been smooth sailing. Other than like some weeks where I wasn't working as much. And there was definitely some ups and downs. And there was one period where I was like working on the business too much rather than in the business, and I was learning how to do service calls and doing fairs and shows, and it was really overwhelming. And also going from an average of 1 to 2 recs to 10 recs can also be really overwhelming. So yeah, I started coaching with Rob, and the first day of coaching with Rob, I got my first 10 recs, and I sold a homemaker, 3 homemakers in a row, and I got 40 recs in my 3 demos after coaching with him. First coaching.
So Rob has helped you a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Rob is on the channel. So yeah. Rob's been featured. So anybody watching, if you go watch the video, it's right here. 7-time All-American Rob Brandt. Let me just show really quick. So Rob is a legend. Here he is, right? So if you guys want to learn more from Rob, you've been working with him one-on-one.
Yeah.
So tell me now, so what are you at right now in career sales?
31,000 something, I think. I know I just hit over 30.
So you've got December 10th, January 10th, February. It's been 3 months. You're at 31,000.
Yeah.
What was there any snags from 20 to 30? Is that what you mentioned with working on the business too much, or was there anything else?
Yes. So, sorry, I have my outline right in front of me so I don't forget all of this. I can go off track a lot, as you've noticed. But yeah, that's when I was mostly like working on field training for fairs and shows, and I was really stressed out of like, I need to memorize all these scripts, and then I went on field training with Nyan for a whole day of service calls. I recorded all of them, and I was watching those over and over again. I also had so yeah, that was more of just like being stressed out, and I kind of stalled because I didn't know where to start. Whereas in between 20 and 25, that's where I got kind of cocky, and I went off script and ran into some actual problems.
Okay, so you got a little overconfident, started doing your own thing.
Yeah.
Started selling less.
Yeah, I started selling less. So I'd say 25 to 30 was just me working on the business. 20 to 25 is where I got really cocky. For example, I had a reschedules issue because I wasn't firming up anymore. I was just like, oh yeah, like I'll see you then. And I had like 50% of all my demos cancel or reschedule. It was really bad. I know that there was another problem that I ran into. Can you text me with the time? Or is this your number? Can I call you back? And they would never call back. Because it's very, Austin was always like, hey, you have to give 2 times. Can you do Tuesday at 5:30 or Tuesday at 8:30? And I'd just be like, when is available for you? You know?
So yeah, so it sounds like anytime you've run into trouble or snags is when you've just went off the program. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah.
So here's what I'd love to do is kind of like a rapid fire of tips, depending on who's watching. So if you were to give one tip to somebody who has an interview with Cutco coming up, what, like, they don't know a ton about the job yet, but like they just got recommended, they're set for an interview or something, what would be your number one tip to that person?
Okay, so for new reps, like just starting out, my number one tip.
Wait, not even started yet. Like they just heard, they're just like, they just heard about the job. Like, what would you say is your number one tip? Like, have an open mind, like anyone can do it. Like, what would be your number one tip to someone who hasn't even really, doesn't really know about the job yet?
My number one tip to people who haven't even started yet would be you get out what you put in. So if you put in the work and the consistency, for example, phone time consistency, then you'll have much more demos booked. If you have much more demos booked, even if you suck at demos, you'll still get some sales or you'll still get recs. Another big one would be don't fear rejection. I feel like a lot of people who start, they're like, oh, someone said no, I'm scared, I don't want to do this anymore. So those would be 2 of my biggest tips for people who haven't started out.
Those are great. So you get out what you put in, totally. And not to be afraid of rejection. I think that's
Yeah.
great. What would be your number one for anyone who's newer? So anyone who just started the job, what's your top tip or two?
Follow the script. Don't do less. Don't do less. Because like me, I got really cocky and I started doing less.
What do you
And
mean less?
like I remember one point I started dropping down. I mean, I started forgetting to drop down. So I'd focus on selling big, and if they'd be like, oh, they give me an objection, like, oh, we want it later on, I'd be like, oh, they want it later on, I'm just not even going to show them the smaller stuff, which is part of the demo. Like, you have to drop down even if they say, oh, I want that one in the future.
100%. Okay, so that's great. Don't take out steps. Like,
Yeah.
keep doing what works.
Yes.
What about your number one tip for someone who just hit 10K? Like, they're at 10K, they need to get to 15 or 20K to get to the next layers of the business, like service calls or events or CGC. Like, what would be your tip for someone who's like, they've sold Cutco, but they're not at the next level yet?
So my biggest breakthrough from after my fast start to hitting 20 was consistent phone time. So just getting into a habit, block it off in your schedule. Don't book anything there, even demos. So I have 7 p.m. From 8 p.m. Sometimes I do 6 to 7 depending. And it's literally in my schedule called PM phone time. But since the ball wasn't rolling as much at that time, I was doing phone time in the AM and the PM because I didn't have too many people to call. So I had to consistently call them. So they'd be like, why are you calling me?
That's great. So great pen, by the way. I noticed your Sharpie S shell.
Oh yes, they're the best. Get one of these.
So consistent phone time. So with recommendations, what was the biggest thing for you that got recommendations working again? Like, you weren't getting recs. What was the tweak? Now you get 10 every time.
Yeah. You actually want me to pull up and tell you what I say? Because there's a couple like actual scripts that I put in there that
Fire away.
Okay. 1 second, let me pull it up. So one is really emphasizing on your goals and rapport. And kind of you have to make them feel like they're a part of it. They're a part of the contest. So one big thing that I did is I made 2 thermometers of my year goal and my monthly goal, and I update it every week. So I'm like, hey, Mrs. Jones, this is where I'm at for the year. This is where I'm at for the month, blah, blah, blah. Really emphasize on building a relationship with them, and your goals. And then I will say, I'll make my 3 promises. So, hey, Mrs. Jones, today I will be the highlight of your day. I want to make this as fun as possible for you. Number 2, I will be asking if you want to get anything today. And number 3, I will be asking for referrals at the end. It's the single most important part of my job. So I am as straight up as possible. And another thing that I mention it at least 4 times in the beginning of my demo. This is like, frankly, selling CUTCO is the easy part. It's just doing enough presentations to make it happen. And I also give away a peeler. This is what I learned in your rec video, to all my sponsors. And I'm generous. I give it away to everyone who hits 10. That's why I average 10 almost every single appointment. Another big thing that I do is at the end of my demo, when I'm asking for recs, I pull up a whole spreadsheet of all of my sponsors, and I have their names pre-written on the bottom. And I'm like, okay, who's first? And they're like they have to give me names by then. So I realized that I will have those couple people who are like, no, I don't give out names. And I kind of just like, you will have those people. But the people who do end up giving me recs, I get 10 from them every single time now.
That's awesome. Like what a great breakthrough. Who are you showing now? Any family left, or is it all referrals of referrals?
I mean, there's been a few here and there. But yeah, all referrals.
That's
I've been
awesome.
on referrals since right after my fast start, for the most part.
That's great. So what's your outlook for the year? Like what's your goal? How are you gonna integrate some of the new stuff like service calls and events and CGC, all the other layers of the business? How are you gonna integrate them into you doing demos? Like what's your goal? How are you gonna get there?
Yeah. So I just finished my field training with fairs and shows. I am now certified for service calls. I just yesterday sharpened all my parents' knives as practice. I've been studying Nyan's videos that I recorded for a while. So first I'm gonna start with a couple service calls. Mostly people, I know there's a lot of family members who have them, so I'm just gonna start like getting used to that. And then I actually have a list in my CRM of people who I call up. And if they're like, oh, I already have CUTCO, I'll put them in my service call lead section. And they agreed to letting me come and sharpen their knives. So I already have a whole list of service calls that I'm just waiting to do. And then I have my next events meeting here in a few weeks, and then I'll start scheduling my first events, which I want to do as many events as I can, because I feel like my schedule is pretty open. Like I'm doing school virtually. Right now I'm working virtually, so I'm dedicating like all my time into CUTCO right now, because I can do school whenever I want. And I'm kind of just gonna work around those fairs and shows, and then I want to kind of do what Nyan and Anastasia do, which is mainly service calls. I still will be doing a lot of virtual calls, but my goal for the whole year is 225,000 in sales. And I am shooting for that silver cup, of course.
I mean, if you sell 225, you should win it, right?
Yeah.
You can't control what anyone else does, but that'll
Yeah.
get you up there.
So my vision, just for the rest of the year, is getting really comfortable with service calls, diving into fairs and shows like as quick as possible. I remember my first events meeting, which was 2 weeks ago or something. I was like, when are the soonest that I can do? Like, that was my question. She was like, when do you want to do them? I'm like, the soonest one that you have.
Yeah. So just some context for someone watching who doesn't know what Kya means by service call. So with CUTCO, there's kind of like layers to your business of selling CUTCO. And the faster that somebody can get from the uncomfortable practice ones with family to referrals to the next layer, which would be probably service calls, which is what Kya is kind of like learning how to do right now, and then events and shows. And service calls means that there's 20 million people who own CUTCO. They need to get sharpened every 5 to 10 years, maybe sooner. So what service call reps do is they go around, they sharpen them, and then while they're sharpening, they say, Mrs. Jones, what have you been using this one for? Oh, well, that's not the right knife at all. And then the customers buy more. And it happens every time. It's like CUTCO is like Apple, where I just put that picture in there, but just because I have an iPhone doesn't mean I'm done buying Apple. That is why I have AirPods, iPad. Here's my iPod that I use for music still sometimes, MacBook. So when someone owns CUTCO, it's actually a really good thing, which you've kind of found out too, right?
Yeah.
And then after service calls, you get to do shows and events. And then I think you mentioned something about CGC. You have realtors trying to get gifts through you now. There are so many layers to being a CUTCO rep that most people don't get to because they give up when the first weekend or the first week is hard.
Yeah.
Why do you think that happens? Why do you think people give up so quickly on the opportunity before they can unlock all the layers?
Because they don't have someone telling them that they have to do it.
Who was telling you had to do it?
No one. And I feel like that's a big reason why people give up on a job like this, is because they don't have people telling them that they have to do it. It's kind of like working on your own time. So yeah. Whereas if you work your 9-to-5 job at Taco Bell, you'll get fired if you don't do it. So yeah, I feel like that's a big reason why people give up. Also because well, you have to be consistent, and there will be up and down days. So a lot of people will get really down on themselves on a down day and just be like, I'm not doing this anymore. Whereas like your next sale could be a kitchen. You just never know.
Yeah, totally a metaphor for entrepreneurship, as a whole. You are a bright young entrepreneur. What's your goal after CUTCO? Like, do you want to start a business? Like, what do you want to do with these skills?
Yeah. So my dad owns 2 businesses, and he owns real estate and everything. And of course he wants me to help him out with that. But I do want to build my own business. I'm not 100% set on what yet, but I love to build something that coincides with his, rather than just being that girl who is like, yeah, I took over my dad's business. I want to build my own empire. It would be nice for it to work directly with my dad's, though. And I want to own lots of real estate. So I was looking at apartments a couple months ago, and I dropped everything, and I was like, why would I do that when I could stay at home, stack my money, and buy something here within the next year?
You're smart. That's what I did. I'm sitting in the house that I bought when I was 20 with my CUTCO.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
It's a great plan. I guess last question. So let's go with so if you sell 220,000, do you know how much money you'd make? Okay.
No, but I
Or
can
225,000?
225,000 for the year.
You don't know how much you would make?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I feel like I don't know the answer to that. Let's do the math really quick. So your first 20K is $5,000 in your pocket. By the way, what was that? Your first 2 months on the job, you made $5,000. What'd you do with that money? You said
what did I do? Put it in my savings.
You're just saving it all up.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're at, let's look right here in the manual. So if you when you sell 225,000, how old are you, by the way, Kya?
I'm 19.
So you're 19, and when you sell 150,000, you'll make $61,000, and the next 75,000 is at 50%. So Kya, you're 19 years old. If you hit your goal, you'll earn right around $100,000.
People go to college for that type of money.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
That is so awesome. You can get some real estate property with that for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, any last like closing tips or thoughts or anything? This was awesome, Kaya. You have a great story. Consistency, the up and downs, the leaning away from the script, doing what works, great vision for the year and for yourself. What any closing remarks?
Yeah. So I have some like key things written in my speech. One of them would be don't fear rejection. Number 2 would be don't lose momentum after a competition or a big sale. Number 3 would be think outside of the box. No one ever got rich by being average. And I forgot to mention this actually, but in between 10 and 20K, I heard about our closing gifts, right? And I actually started, you there?
Yep. Can you still see and hear me?
Yeah. So I actually started calling realtors off of Zillow. And at this point, I had no training, and I didn't even know that I'd be able to place orders if I ended up closing them. Like I had no idea. I just heard that we sell closing gifts. And so I thought outside of the box, and I remember calling Austin, and he was like, dude, you won't even be able to place orders. And so Matt Makowicz gave me like a crash course, and I was able to continue with those appointments. And before I was even on a team, I had like 5 orders lined up, all, and like those together were like 4,000 in CPO.
Oh, are you still there? So they were 4,000 in CPO.
Yeah. So another thing would be thinking outside the box. I'm not saying go against the rules at that point, but thinking outside of the box, told my manager that I'm ready for new layers. So that's another big one. And then my 2 biggest pieces would be do consistent phone time. That's one of them. And then 2 would be don't skip steps. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 biggest
Those are also great. Well, Kaya, so you're talking about your outline in your speech. You have your first ever like podium speak. You get to talk to is it your region tomorrow?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Wednesday.
Wednesday. So Kaya's giving her first ever message, and it's going to be kind of on this, right? Just your path to 30K. And
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be more organized, as in like I'm gonna go down the line of like my weekend, my first week, 10 to 20, 25, 20 to 25. And yeah, I have this whole speech written out, and yeah, it's gonna be cool.
that's awesome. Yeah, you're going to crush it. Hey, thank you for your time. This will be I'm putting this on the front of success stories on my channel. This is going to go literally right here because I think everybody should watch this video. But then we'll have to move Rob back just a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, Rob.
You can't kick Rob off of the front page. So
Yeah.
okay. Well, thank you, Kaya. Good luck with the year.
Cool.
Now I'll be keeping track. You're in Rob's program. I have a bunch of my guys and people in Rob's coaching as well. He's great. So good luck. Thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.